All right, today we're talking about a band that exploded out of the Las Vegas desert and pretty much took over the world, all while trying to figure out exactly who they were supposed to be. You know the one. It kicks in with maybe the most recognizable guitar riff of the 21st century. It's just pure, frantic energy, and it perfectly captures that feeling of jealousy, suspicion, and your mind just spiraling out of control. And get this, that song, Mr. Brightside, has spent over 486 weeks on the UK music charts. I mean, that's more than 9 years. It's literally the third biggest song of all time over there. It's a cultural phenomenon that just will not die. So how on earth did a band from Las Vegas create this unkillable anthem? Well, the thing is, this isn't really a story about just one song. It's about a relentless, 2-decade-long search for an identity that has made them one of modern rock's most fascinating bands. To really get it, we've got to go back to the very beginning. So let's set the scene. The year is 2001. We're in Las Vegas, and the music scene is all nu metal and rap. It's basically the last place on the planet you would expect the next great indie rock band to come from. But that's exactly where a young hotel bellhop had a vision. So this bellhop, a guy named Brandon Flowers, goes to see Oasis play, and it's like a lightning bolt strikes. He just knows he has to be in a guitar band. So he goes and answers a newspaper ad from a guitarist, Dave Kuning, and they hit it off instantly, bonding over their shared obsession with British bands like Oasis and New Order. They even named their band after a fake band in a New Order music video, creating a sound that was, a total oddity in their hometown.
And that's the thing. That unique British-inspired sound was so out of place in Vegas that it sent them on this really unusual path to fame. They were struggling to get any attention at home, so their big break actually came from all the way across the Atlantic. And that's what really set the stage for this dramatic, career-defining identity crisis.
So after getting basically nowhere in the US, they signed with this indie label in the UK called Lizard King Records. And their debut album, Hot Fuss, was an absolute sensation over there. It was just this perfect mix of all their British influences, a little new wave, some post-punk, some dance rock, and it turned them into global superstars almost overnight. But here's something cool. Underneath all those slick, catchy singles, Hot Fuss has this really dark narrative core. Fans call it the Murder Trilogy. It's a story told across 3 different songs about jealousy, despair, and, a fictional murder. This ambition showed that right from the start, they were way more than just a singles band. But just as they conquered the world sounding, kind of British, they gave everyone whiplash with a massive pivot. They totally rejected the synth-pop of Hot Fuss and went all in on this epic American Heartland Rock identity for their second album, Sam's Town. We're talking full-on Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty. It was a complete and total reinvention. And Brandon Flowers went out and boldly claimed it was one of the best albums in 2 decades. Now, critics were a little skeptical at first, but the album's passionate, grandiose vision eventually earned it this massive cult following, which proved his ambition was way more than just talk. So this constant reinvention really defined their next phase. The pressures of being a stadium-sized band led them to some pretty wild experimentation and some serious internal friction. Yep, they swerved again. For their third album, Day and Age, they veered right back into electronic territory. They brought in producer Stuart Price and just threw everything into the mix: saxophones, African tribal chants, you name it. They created this sound that was futuristic, eclectic, and totally unexpected. The lead single, Human, gave us one of the most debated lyrics in rock history. It was inspired by a Hunter S. Thompson quote, and honestly, that weird, wonderful question captured their experimental spirit perfectly. But this period of sonic adventure was also when you started to see some cracks in the foundation. Solo projects started happening, and eventually, both bassist Mark Stormer and guitarist Dave Kuning took breaks from touring, which really tested the band's cohesion and its whole identity. Yet, here's the crazy part. Despite all the internal shifts, their commercial power never really faltered, especially not in the UK, the country that embraced them from day one. They kept a perfect streak of #1 studio albums going over there, which just proves that no matter how much they experimented, their original fan base was incredibly loyal. And then the pandemic hit. Ironically, a period of global lockdown with a fractured touring lineup actually sparked this period of intense productivity, leading to some of their most personal and critically acclaimed work ever. This creative renaissance was just stunning to watch. They released the soaring anthemic album Imploding the Mirage in 2020, and then just a year later, they followed it with Pressure Machine, a quiet, folk-influenced concept album all about Brandon Flowers' small-town Utah upbringing. I mean, the artistic range was just remarkable. Riding this wave of creativity, they headed back into the studio with producers Stuart Price and Sean Everett, and the plan was to make a big return to the synth-pop sounds that first made them famous. But then, halfway through recording, Flowers pulled the plug. He scrapped the entire project. After 2 decades of searching for who they were supposed to be, he refused to release music that felt forced or inauthentic. It was a massive, defining decision. So where does that leave them now? Well, it seems after years of running from their past and searching for some true identity, their legacy is finally being found, not by choosing one path, but by embracing all of them. In 2024, we got the ultimate full circle moment. The original 4 members reunited for a residency in their hometown of Las Vegas to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Hot Fuss, the very album that kicked off their identity crisis in the first place. And looking forward, they've got a clear roadmap. It's this balance of solo projects for Flowers, international touring for the band, and a projected new Killers album in 2027. It really suggests a band that's finally comfortable in its own multifaceted skin.
So the answer to our opening question, Mr. Brightside wasn't some accident. It was the explosive start to a career built on mixing global influences with a relentless, Vegas-sized ambition. Their true identity was never just one thing, but the constant, thrilling tension between all of them.
And that leaves us with a final thought inspired by their whole journey. Maybe authenticity in art isn't some fixed destination you arrive at. Perhaps, as the story of the Killers suggests, the most authentic thing you can be is the search itself.